Recently, I got a response under this video from someone trying to take down one of my arguments that proves that the Big Bang is not science, but just a myth for atheists. I will read his entire, or her entire shitpost. Diffraction does not cause a significant shift in wavelength, especially not to the extent that you are describing. I agree that the reason the sky becomes red during sunset is that light has to go through more stuff. But that's not because diffraction increases the wavelength of the sun's light. The sun's light is a continuous spectrum of light. It is a mix of all wavelengths of light. During sunset, the light goes through more stuff. Blue light gets scattered more and so takes a less straight path, which may cause it to go below the horizon. Whereas red light does not get scattered as much, and so our horizon is composed of more red light, and the sky and sun become redder, and not once during this process do the wavelength of the sun's light change significantly. The misconception you made seems to have stemmed from the assumption that the sun's light is monochromatic. Regarding your point about CDs, this again is caused by an assumption that your ceiling light or any background light is monochromatic. It isn't, which is why different colors are seen, because they were already there to begin with. You can verify my claim by shining a laser on a CD in a dark room. Laser light has very little variation in wavelength. You'll notice that the diffracted light doesn't have any noticeable shift in wavelength. The reason I said earlier that diffraction does not cause a significant shift in wavelength, instead of diffraction does not cause a shift in wavelength, is that light does experience a small shift when it is diffracted off an object. The effect is called Compton scattering. It is a consequence of the conservation of the momentum of light, but this effect is on the order of a fraction of a billionth of a nanometer. It is not significant enough to explain the redshift we observe in receding galaxies. And even if redshift was caused by diffraction, how would you explain the difference in the redshift of revolving galaxies? In rapidly revolving galaxies, one side of the galaxy is spinning towards us while the other side is spinning away from us. The light from both sides goes through the same amount of stuff, but the redshifts are vastly different. The link above is a good visualization of the effect. If redshift isn't caused by the recession, how would you explain this effect? Regarding the point about why galaxies are torn apart by the expansion of the universe is because Hubble's equations characterizing the expansion of the universe treat the universe as a homogeneous and isotropic mass, which it is at a large scale, such as large galaxy clusters, but not valid for small scales like individual galaxies. The equations are not valid at such a scale, which is why we don't observe Hubble's expansion on small scales. The Big Bang is currently our best model of our universe's creation, given all the evidence we have collected to explain everything we see in the universe. Now, if anyone has a better model, they would need to explain these effects better. Diffraction does not cause a significant, he said. Significant is not a scientific term. This is entirely subjective. Right off the bat, you leave the science room and enter the creative writing room. Brief laughter originally. Also, your claim is false because you're demanding that it be true, without giving any reason for it, and contrary to reason. We're talking about light as far away as can be. There is plenty of stuff floating around in space which will diffract the light, leading to redshift, as I have already explained in the previous videos of my latest series on the Big Bang. You're demanding that nature not work as it does, but it does because you don't dictate reality. I agree that the reason the sky becomes... That's what he said. So then I said, so you believe less energy is not a result of having to detour? Not merely a rhetorical question. Then you don't understand that energy isn't infinite. It runs out in accordance with space and time, which means it will diffract. What I'm saying is, in diffraction, it will lead to a loss of energy. And a loss of energy does lead to a lengthening of the wavelength, which means redshift. So they said that the sun is a mix of all wavelengths of light and that blue light gets scattered more. No. There is no blue light. There is what we see as white. The wavelength of so-called blue is not quarantined, but is, as he said, mixed with the other wavelengths. So he cherry-picked blue in the mix, as if it could be quarantined. They're all in the same boat, so all lose energy if they have to detour around things. Diffraction. And that will lead to redshift. So at least he tried a new argument I never heard before. Credit to him for that. On this thing that he said, noticeable to the naked eye is a red herring fallacy, since a laser in a room won't have much diffraction as compared to distant starlight, which makes that a false equivalency fallacy. He said monochromatic. Strawman fallacy. I showed I understood that light is multichromatic when I said in the video that white light is a combination of colors which diffraction splits. From light that looks white, different wavelengths come about because of the diffraction. And by come about, I mean they are seen. Now, I was focused on diffraction in the case of one wavelength, which is how to most simply describe diffraction, to avoid confusion. But that ironically led to confusion, since he assumed I didn't understand that light is more than just one, as it were, line of radiation. But I have clarified that now. They said that that the small shift is just from Compton scattering, which is a negligible effect. I was new to the term that he brought up, so I had to use Google, not for an answer to beat his argument, but to understand what the establishment says about it, to make sure he's not omitting anything important. Lo and behold, he did. The key here is there's about a charged particle. That is irrelevant, and he's conflating it with all cases of diffraction, when diffraction does not require charged particles. So he missed again. Ha. Next slide. Receding galaxies. Circular reasoning hasn't proven this. You apparently didn't see the original video of mine refuting the Big Bang using constellations, which are visible unlike his atheist myth. Constellations would not exist as they have thousands of years in the past if the universe exploded. You know, these people, these atheists and such, they believe the equivalent of, my room had an explosion but the furniture was intact. That makes no sense. These people are insane. You're wrestling with the trunk of the elephant of my arguments, believing it is the entirety of my arguments, or argumentation. I was going to laugh out loud. I plan to make a video of our debate to supplement the previous ones in my series. Thanks for your contributions. Let's see what else you said. So then he said that redshift from revolving galaxies, they say it wouldn't make sense because one spins towards us, part of the galaxy, and the other side spins away from us, so the shifting should be different, they said. First of all, your premise of taking the establishment's word at face value is an unscientific in every way move. You should have said they're alleged redshifts. The fact you don't even question them proves you're gullible. What are you? Atheist, heretic, or Muslim? Or what? So the thing is, I've learned this when arguing with atheists, never go along with any of their assumptions, make them prove everything that they need to prove. Never go along with their assumptions. That's how they will seem to have won, but no, they can never win because they cannot prove their house of cards assumptions. And when it all boils down, he just has blind trust in the establishment. He's not a free thinker. He doesn't think for himself. Another problem here is that of the definition of galaxy. In our solar system alone, things are going in different directions. So if you want to claim that the galaxy goes one way, you use one object to supposedly prove this, such as a planet. But if your agenda is to supposedly prove that it goes a different way, then you can cherry pick the item that goes in that direction. And ask yourself, why does distant starlight go red? Diffraction is a perfect answer because the more far away starlight is, the more stuff in between those distant stars and us, which will inevitably diffract. Yet he boasts in his unquestioned, already refuted by static for millennia constellations garbage myth as the best explanation we have. He doesn't even consider outside the box. He's gullible. You've already proven you don't think for yourself. You do not question them. Scientists are paid shills. Learn of the history of scientists. How many were liars for money? How many were liars to fit in? How many were racists trying to justify racism? How many were scared to rock the boat? How many were just utter fools? I know a PhD guy who was an idiot. He wishes Hitler won. I put him in his place. Now, of course, Hitler wasn't as bad as the British, but anyway, I put him in his place when he belittled my people as if inferior to his barbaric race. It's not a boast because he's a paper tiger and anyone could put him in his place. You suggested I visit what is essentially atheist pseudo-astronomy.commerce. Barf. Much of my youth was stolen from me to be a Big Bang cultist like you. I'm tired of your side's disgusting lies and propaganda. I want no more of that shit. I proved the Big Bang wrong, and there's nothing any enemy of Christ can do about it. The typical atheist fanatic response would be to say that if I had a point, I would get an award from the establishment. That's just moral gullibility, trusting in paid shill or flat-out deceived scientists. An ad verecundiam and bandwagon fallacy combination. And also argument from incredulity. There is no way you can be right and scientists wrong. History proves scientists are always right. Oh wait, never mind. Regarding the point about why galaxies are torn apart by the expansion of the universe. They keep saying this, but there is no expansion. That's your quasi-religious mantra. Expansion, aum, expansion, aum. So he says Hubble's equations, blah, blah, blah. So we don't observe the expansion because of blah, 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 because of mathematics. Bullshit pretext equivalent to, we don't see leprechauns because according to Mr. Shatner's mathematical equations, they disappear whenever we look their way. A movie with as many convenient plot devices as your pseudoscience will be too ridiculous to be watchable. Plot device 1. Diffraction magically doesn't work, even though it seemed to work and inevitably would work, leading to redshift, making the Big Bang totally obsolete and worthless. Plot device 2. Scientists are infallible. Plot device 3. Constellations are the same since mankind began, but the universe exploded, rendering them intact because explosions don't move furniture around in our movie. Plot device 4. If mathematics says imaginary numbers exist, they are no longer imaginary. Plot device 5. Time can explode. Birthdays can explode. And I originally laughed out loud when I typed that. The Big Bang is currently our best model. Nonsense, it's shit. Lie, you reject evidence. You see diffraction, which proves the Big Bang is totally unnecessary to explain redshift. We have an empirical answer. We don't need your imaginary, bullshit, atheist myth answer. You know light having to detour will increase the wavelength of light, which inevitably means redshift. The Big Bang is obsolete.